Whenever I listen back to something that I do, it just makes me feel weird.
Hi, my lovely.
Hi.
Welcome to America's Got Talent.
She was barely a teenager when the spotlight found her. A small girl with wild brown hair stood center stage, her hands trembling slightly as she faced the blinding lights in the sea of faces before her. The theater was silent, waiting. No one could have predicted what would happen next. When she opened her mouth and let that voice escape, it was as though decades of soul, pain, and rebellion poured from a body far too young to hold it all. The crowd didn't just hear a singer that night. They witnessed a transformation. A shy British girl became a symbol of raw talent, of pure emotion, unfiltered by fear. But behind the electricity of that moment was a deeper story. A story of isolation, pressure, and quiet heartbreak that no one could see beneath the spotlight's glow. This is the story of Courtney Hadwin, the young girl from County Durham, whose meteoric rise to fame would test her in ways few could imagine. Courtney Hadwin was born on May 6, 2004 in Essen, a quiet working-class village in County Durham, England. Life there was simple and modest. Rows of brick houses stood shoulder to shoulder, the air often smelling faintly of rain and freshly cut grass. Her parents, Paul and Anne-Marie Hadwin, worked hard to provide for their children, never imagining their eldest daughter would one day become an international sensation. From a young age, Courtney showed signs of being different. She didn't just listen to music. She felt it. Her mother would play old soul records around the house, filling the rooms with the voices of legends like Otis Redding, Ada James, and Janis Joplin. Most kids her age would dance or sing along carelessly. But Courtney listened deeply, watching how each note carried emotion. She was drawn to voices that sounded imperfect, voices that cracked and trembled and burned with something real. At 3 years old, she would twirl in the living room, hands in the air, mimicking the singers she heard through the speakers. Her parents laughed, thinking it was just another childhood phase. But something about the way she moved, the way she closed her eyes and lost herself in rhythm made her mother pause. There was a spark there, a connection to something beyond play. As she grew older, that spark only burned brighter. Her teachers noticed it first. During a school assembly, when the class was asked to sing a simple tune, Courtney's voice rose above the rest, soft, soulful, and strangely mature. The music teacher took her aside afterward and said she had something special. From then on, singing became her language, her way of expressing emotions she couldn't yet put into words. At the age of 8, she joined her school choir. Each week, she stood proudly on the assembly stage, hands clasped in front of her, waiting for the signal to begin. The first few times, nerves made her voice shake. But the more she sang, the more confident she became. Her classmates started calling her the rocker girl because she was never content just standing still. She liked to move, stomping her feet, tossing her hair, letting the music take her over. While most kids worried about fitting in, Courtney cared only about the next song, the next stage, the next chance to feel that rush again. By age 10, her dreams had already outgrown her. Small village. With a few friends from the neighborhood, she started a tiny band called Durham Soul. They would meet after school using borrowed guitars and second-hand drums, playing covers of classic soul and rock songs. Their first audience was usually a handful of neighbors or curious passers-by. But for Courtney, those small crowds might as well have been arenas. Each performance gave her a new kind of confidence, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, this dream of hers wasn't impossible. One evening, a local newspaper reporter came to watch one of their performances. The next morning, a short article appeared under the headline, "Young Girl Brings Soul to County Durham." It was the first time Courtney saw her name in print. That tiny piece of recognition meant the world to her and to her parents, who finally realized their daughter's talent wasn't just a hobby. It was a calling. Her parents enrolled her in Schotenhall Theater School, where she received formal vocal training for the first time. Her instructor quickly noticed something unusual. Courtney didn't sing like most kids. She sang with her whole body, bending notes, growling through verses, and belting choruses with a force that seemed far beyond her years. But she also struggled with self-doubt. She was shy by nature, uncomfortable in large social groups. Offstage, she was quiet and withdrawn, often keeping to herself. On stage, however, she transformed into something else entirely, a fearless performer who poured everything she had into the music. That duality would follow her for the rest of her life. The timid girl and the fiery performer, trapped within the same soul. Courtney's first major stage performance came at a small festival in Durham City. The lights were bright and the crowd was larger than anything she'd ever seen before. As she walked up to the microphone, her hands shook. But the moment the first note hit, everything melted away. The audience cheered, and her voice soared, rich and powerful. When the final chord ended, a wave of applause filled the night air. For the first time, she felt what it meant to connect with people through music, to make strangers feel something real. That moment became a turning point. She knew what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. By 12, her sights were set far beyond England. She began saving money, putting away her allowance and birthday gifts, hoping to someday travel abroad to chase her dream. Her family wasn't wealthy, but they believed in her completely. Her mother often reminded her, "Work hard, stay humble, and never forget where you came from." Those words became her mantra. She dreamed of performing in front of the world. And in 2018, that dream would come true. The opportunity came in the form of America's Got Talent. Courtney had watched the show from home for years, studying the contestants, analyzing the judges, imagining what it might feel like to stand on that stage. When auditions opened, she begged her parents to let her try. It seemed impossible, a small-town girl crossing the ocean to compete on one of the world's biggest stages. But her parents eventually agreed. They knew how much it meant to her. That summer, Courtney boarded a plane to the United States with her parents, a suitcase full of clothes and a heart full of hope. When she stepped into the CenturyLink Center in Omaha, Nebraska. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest. The other contestants were rehearsing, pacing, and whispering nervously. She sat quietly, gripping her audition form, trying to steady her breathing. When her name was finally called, she walked through the narrow hallway toward the stage lights. What happened next would change her life forever. Standing under the glare of the spotlights, Courtney looked out at the judges: Simon Cowell, Howie Mandel, Heidi Klum, and Mel B. The crowd fell silent. She was wearing a black leather jacket, a simple white shirt, and dark jeans. Nothing fancy, just herself. When the music started, her voice came out soft and uncertain. Then something inside her shifted. With the first chorus, her true voice emerged. Gritty, raw, full of fire. She moved like she'd been performing for decades. Her energy exploding across the stage. The judges' reaction said it all. Disbelief, awe, shock. Simon leaned forward. Howie covered his mouth. Melb smiled wide. When the song ended, the room erupted in tears. And then the unthinkable happened. Howie Mandel hit the golden buzzer. Gold confetti rained down as Courtney's eyes filled with tears. Her parents cried backstage, overwhelmed with pride. In that instant, a 13-year-old girl from a small English village became an international sensation. Overnight, her life transformed. Videos of her audition went viral, gathering millions of views across social media. Headlines around the world celebrated her as the second coming of Janis Joplin. Fans praised her raw talent, her fearless spirit, and her old soul energy. She was invited onto talk shows, featured in newspapers, and interviewed by major outlets. For most kids her age, fame would be a dream come true. But for Courtney, it was a double-edged sword. Behind the scenes, the pressure was immense. She was suddenly living in a whirlwind. Interviews, rehearsals, photos, and constant attention. Strangers recognized her in public. Journalists wanted her story. Producers wanted the next viral moment. And yet, Courtney was still just a child, trying to find her place in the world. She missed her family, her quiet home in Hessen, the comfort of ordinary days. In interviews, she smiled and spoke humbly. But when the cameras turned off, she often retreated to silence. Fame, she realized, was far louder than applause. It followed her everywhere, even in moments when she longed for peace. Her performances on America's Got Talent continued to wow audiences. Each round, she brought something new. Something raw and unpredictable. Fans described her as possessed by music, as if an older soul lived within her young body. The more she performed, the higher the expectations grew. By the time she reached the finals, Courtney had become both a fan favorite and a media obsession. People dissected her every move, her outfit choices, even her nervous expressions. The same world that lifted her up began to weigh on her shoulders. When the show ended, she didn't win the top prize, but it didn't matter. She had already captured the world's attention. Record labels reached out. Producers wanted to collaborate. She was offered performance opportunities across the globe. Yet, amid the excitement, Courtney struggled to adapt to her new life. The spotlight that had once felt like magic now felt blinding. She missed the simplicity of singing in her bedroom, of being a normal kid. She was learning what so many young stars had learned before her: that fame is rarely gentle. After America's Got Talent, Courtney signed with a management company and began working on original music. She released singles and performed at various shows, slowly carving out her own artistic identity. Her sound was evolving, still soulful, but more experimental. Yet, as her career advanced, something else began to fade. The innocence, the unshakable joy of singing purely for herself was being replaced by the pressure to perform, to produce, to stay relevant. It was an unspoken tragedy. The quiet loss of childhood in exchange for success. And behind her growing fame, few realized the toll it was taking on her emotionally. Courtney was introverted by nature. The endless interviews, public scrutiny, and social media attention became overwhelming. Every move she made was watched, commented on, analyzed. Strangers had opinions about her personality, her shyness, even her stage mannerisms. For a girl who had always found comfort in music, the noise of fame became deafening.